literature and television. You ready to shake things up? I am Loop Garou, and you are here to feast on my opinions of all things movie, TV, and book. And this week, we are feasting on a series of books. Not a single book, but the whole series to date. Now, are you Seelie or Unseelie? And if you play D&D or Changeling the Dreaming, you know about the races of the Fae and how they come in courts. The Seelie court, which are the semi-nicer, more aesthetically pleasing Fae, or the Unseelie court, which are the darker, less beautiful Fae. But all of them are still Fae, and all of them have a very nasty streak to them. Now, I can hear it. I can hear it. What does that have to do with what we're reading? What you want us to read? We are doing the 9 books of Laurell K. Hamilton's Merry Gentry series. Now, she did Anita Blake. I have not read those yet. I want to. I have not read them yet. Now, you're wondering, why am I tackling the whole series? Because for one thing, there's 9 books available. And for another, her story is started and continued. It's like where one stops, the other picks up. Which is awesome. Now, it starts the conflict between the Seelie and Unseelie courts start long before Mary is born. And when they come to America, the U.S. government says they need to lock away more of their more damaging powers. So they do. But that has some devastating consequences for the Fae that they don't pay attention to. Now, Mary was the first Fae born on American soil. And to stave off a pending fight, Queen Undiaz, the Queen of Air and Darkness, ruler of the Unseelie court, ordered her younger brother, Princessus, to marry the niece of the king of the Seelie court. They would have been able to have an amicable split, an amicable divorce, after 5 years if Mommy wouldn't have gotten pregnant. Spoilers! Mommy got pregnant within 6 months. Hence, Meredith Nikessos was born. And yes, that is what she was named. Because even though by 33 years old, she still had not come into her magic. Her father, Princessus, Prince of Blood. Her aunt, Queen Undiaz, Queen of Light, Air and Darkness. The king of the Seelie court, King of Light and Illusion. But sadly, Mary had no magic. And she could get sick. Mary was the ultimate slap in the face to the Fae. She was mortal. And Undiaz decided, I cannot have such an impure little mongrel in my family. So I'm going to drown her. Daddy saved her and said, oh, heck no, big sister. you're not keeping my daughter. You're not. You're not keeping my daughter anywhere near this court. However, I can't give my 6-year-old to her mother because her great uncle darn near beat her to death for asking a simple question. Now, I'm betting I can hear you. How is she mortal? Her father is pure Unseelie she. Think token elf with rounded ears. That's a she. Her mother is part brownie, part human, part she. And the reason why mommy is such a hybrid is because Mary's grandfather had a curse put on him because he was such a royal toss-up. And that curse was, unless he could find someone to willfully marry him, he would never have a normal child.
Some of us are thinking dessert.
My camera woman just reminded me. A brownie is a type of fae, not just a good confection, that has nut brown skin, but in this lore, their face looks more skeletal than what you'd see in Willow. Because you do see little brownies, which would technically be demi-fae in this world, in the movie Willow. But yes, they are about yay tall, nut brown hair and skin, skeletal-like face because they don't have a nose, hairy arms and legs. That's a brownie. Mary's grandmother, half brownie, half human. According to the rules of both courts, specifically since taming down their powers to mimic humans more, which these are beings of the elements. They shouldn't be mimicking human beings. They really shouldn't. If you get married and have a child, your status from what you were born immediately jumps to your spouse's status. So grandma went from lowly servant to king's sister-in-law, third in command of the Sithen, the house, the mound. And Mary's uncles were classed as monsters and were kicked to the Unseelie court because if they touched someone or something, the acid and poison they exude from their hands would cause them to dissolve. Specifically, anything organic. So that was a problem for these poor boys. And being the king's brother, he couldn't have monsters for children. So he accepted this brownie as his wife, thinking, oh, I can be rid of her in 5 years because she's not going to, oh crap, she got pregnant because that brownie had a lot of fertility deities in the heritage. Mary told her aunt that she had 9 fertility fae in her lineage, which is awesome because that is important. Mary's story truly starts after her father is brutally murdered. And you find that out in book 1. You don't find out who kills him until either Swallowing Darkness or divine misdemeanors. I cannot remember. Sorry, I will pull them closer. But you find out he's brutally murdered here, and you don't learn who kills him until here. Hence why the whole saga is important.
Separate.
Yes, I will. So in this one, you learn that the queen used modern medical science to figure out why her court was declining and why Mary was the only child born to her court. Oh, crap. Queen's barren. Queen's infertile. By the rules and laws of the Fae, the health and well-being of the ruler trickles down and infects the whole citizen, infects the whole of the people. So because the queen was barren, her people were barren. Fearing her people would be wiped out, Andíaz decided she needed to figure out if her son Kel or her niece Mary were fertile. Now, being heir in darkness, Andíaz was a warrior. She was very much a battle goddess in her heyday. And she killed a fertility goddess, a fertility fae, and stole her ring. And while Andíaz was fertile, the ring was warm. She gave that ring to Mary. It was still warm. It had long gone cold on her hand, but it was warm on Mary's hand. And when she touched her best friend Galen, it sparked. It pulsed. And they're like, what does that mean? I don't know. It meant Galen was fertile as well. So Andíaz gave Mary an order. Pick from my guards, my ravens, and bring them to bed. Yes, you heard me correctly. Bring them to bed. And there's very little in the way of romance in these stories. But that's fine. So Mary accidentally touched the captain of the Queen's Guard. Darkness was his nickname. He was the Queen's Darkness. Called Dole. Or Doyle, depending on how you want to pronounce his name. But it also sparked for Darkness's lieutenant, Frost. Now, Frost was at a disadvantage to some of his fellows. Frost had been the Queen's consort for 200 years. He was Andíaz's consort. And no child came of it. And it devastated him. So he went from outgoing, kind of fun, pretty playboy to touch me and I will pummel you. Because after having been with her for 200 years and now being told I can't have it at all, leave me alone. One of the oldest of her guards is a young man named Reese. And he's not young. He's had 5 name changes throughout his lifetime. And he's always been a death god in the eyes of us humans. Now, Reese was good friends with Essos, and he helped raise and take care of Merry. So when the ring pulsed for him, he jumped at the opportunity to leave the fairy mounds and stay with Merry. Galen was the same way. There was an argument, and Frost... Now, like I said, there was a fight. There was a conflict that built up where Merry and Kel were sitting just below Andiaz. Galen, Reese, and Frost all jumped to protect Merry. Dole hesitated, and Andiaz lost it and banished her captain to be with Merry. And it devastated him. Now, you're wondering, what do you mean? You've jumped around too much. How did she get the ring? Why was she any of this? Well, what does her father's murder have to do with any of this? Well, after her father was murdered, her cousin was hiring people to try and assassinate her via court-sanctioned duels. You offended me, so I challenge you to a duel. Merry said, you know what? I'm done. I'm not allowed any proper weapons. I don't have any magic. I'm done. I'm leaving. So Merry packed up and left. And book 1 is when Dole is dispatched to bring her back. You also find out how she sparks into her power, which is a really big slap in the face to every Fae in both courts. So I'm not telling that. You have to read it. Unless you don't like sex scenes in novels, then you're just going to have to avoid this series. Because 90% of the biggest magical explosions happen when Merry is actively engaged with one of her men using fertility magic. And I think at stroke of midnight, her cousin Kel's best friend, an Earth Fae named Amphion, had the ring spark for him. And Andiaz had just told the entire court that if the ring sparks for you, it doesn't matter who, what, when, where, or how, you will take her right there where you're at. So, when the ring sparked for Amphion, instead of them staying in the Scythian hallway, they were taken into the fairy lands themselves. And Amphion's looking around, and because he is directly linked to the land, he's devastated by how badly they let it die. So he pulls out his blade and he goes, Merry, kill me. Give me back to the land. Save the land. And she's like, oh, whoa, time out. Hold up. Just your tears are bringing this land back to life. Why should I kill you when, 1, you're fertile, and 2, our numbers are dwindling anyway? You dying, yes, it'll bring the land back, but it won't help our people. So take off your damn clothes, get on that ground, and let me have fun with you. He said, sure. But the instant she put his life and his well-being and his desires to actually not die without having sex in a millennia or more, made him realize that she was an infinitely better ruler than Kel or Andíaz ever could be, because they would not have hesitated to take his blade and bleed him out on the ground. And that horrified him. He's like, that is my best friend who would have arbitrarily let me die. And Merry knew deep down he would not have reincarnated because of how badly they had let the fairyland suffer. Now, when she comes back, she has to rescue her men from an ambush by Kel's people. And they end up winning and finding Hathwin. Hathwin is one of the few Fae healers who can still heal by putting their hand on somebody and just saying heal. She had been stolen into the prince's cranes, the prince's royal guard, and he forbade her from being a healer because she refused to let one of his enemies die. What was really sad about that is that Hathwin was one of Essis's cranes. And basically, Kel told every single one of Essis's cranes, you're all my gifts from my mom. None of you are allowed to tell me no. You are all my guards. Unfortunately, when Andíaz asked, hey, what happened to my brother's cranes? Kel, they volunteered. They chose to be my guards. So he lied to Mommy Dearest and prevented the Fae from choosing whether or not they left service as the cranes. Merry has two hands of power. She uses one to great effect in this one. And then later on, when she has to rescue her men from her aunt, she uses the other one. And the main reason why she attacks her aunt is because she looks over and sees Mistral. Mistral gives her the dirtiest look a person can give someone. And it boiled down to, oh God, another useless royal. And she went, how am I supposed to protect my men if I don't stand up against the biggest threat to them? So she attacks her aunt. If you read it properly, she dies. Because her aunt crushes her lungs. She removes the air from her lungs. She collapses Merry's lungs by just removing the air from them. What transpires to give Merry back to her people? Brilliantly written. And yeah. Through all of this, Merry not only has to fight off her cousin's assassins, convince the court that she's not trying to poison them with her mortal blood, but she also has to tell her very much sterile great uncle, her grandfather's brother, the King of Light and Illusion, that she does not want to be his bedmate. And this man has been barren since he lost the ability to make his illusions reality. Because one of the things he used to do when he was back in his heyday and at his most powerful is because dreams are illusions that take place in your mind. He would put himself in the minds of women he liked and literally make them believe he impregnated them. So they would wake up carrying his child. When that ability got locked away, he became completely and irredeemably sterile. However, in his twisted, deluded mind, because Mary and Galen were able to help a cancer-ridden, chemotherapy-saturated human male impregnate a she-female through a fertility rite, Mary could have his child no matter what. Mary constantly said, "Uncle, stop it. Uncle, leave me alone. Uncle, that's inappropriate." He did not want to listen. Mary was able to help so many couples have children. But her own quest to get pregnant was evading her. Oh, she does. Make no mistake. She does have children. She finds out in this one. She finds out in Swallowing Darkness. Or she finds out at the very beginning of Divine Misdemeanors that she is pregnant. And in A Shiver of Light, she gives birth to her babies. There's a slight complication. When she first finds out, it's 2 babies, 6 fathers. And Frost becomes a stag as punishment, or not even, it's not even punishment, it is payment for tapping into the fairylands so far from the fairy mounds. Because Mary's brilliant. To protect her people, she moves them all to the west coast to get them away from the fairy mounds, to get them away from the threats, because most of the Fae do not want to be in such a technological-ridden society. Now, I don't want to tell you anymore because there are so many details I've left out, just so this is a shorter video. But my cameraman's like, yes, and this is a long video. But then a lot of mine are, because I can be very long-winded about what I like. But like I said, if you do not like sex scenes in your novels or your movies, you cannot read these. Yes, and that is precisely why my camera woman has not read them. Because she is not interested in reading about other people's sexual exploits. Now, if it was just sexual exploits, I would not be interested in it either. However, the story interwoven between the sex scenes is a fantastic tale that should be read. So let me know in the comments. Have you read them? Will you read them? Will you have somebody like me who has read them read them to you, editing out the more saucy scenes? because I did that with a different series for, well, one of my family members. But I'd have to edit out like half these books by saying, yeah, they got together and this is what happened. But here's the rest of the story after that takes place. But these are my opinions. Feel free to disagree. I love this series. I had a friend of mine introduce me to it, and I'd never looked back. I read the first one, and I promptly bought the rest. Because they are a good series. And like I said, if it was just sex, I wouldn't be reading it. But it's the story that is punctuated by the sex that ties it all together and makes it worth reading. So again, have you read it? Will you read it? These are, again, my opinions. Feel free to disagree. Just remember, kindness is the key to understanding. So be kind to me and be kind to each other in the comments. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.